circumstances. Penny's friends continued to chat and knit around her, as oblivious to Kenneth's presence as he was to theirs. Cynthia, the one having the art show Monday, was venting about the challenges of managing caterers and publicity for her show, and the others' attention was focused on her. It was just as well. If they knew, one of them might decide to confront him, and Penny didn't want a scene. What she wanted was to not have this happening to her here of all places, in front of her friends. Antidote was her place. She lived just a few blocks away and worked out of her apartment, so she walked here almost every weekday for her morning coffee break, which Kenneth also knew, because this was where they'd first met. She'd been sitting at her usual stool at the counter 2 months ago, enjoying her usual mid-morning non-fat latte, when he'd come in for a triple espresso and asked if the seat beside her was taken. They'd chatted for almost half an hour, and she'd been thoroughly dazzled by his British accent and charming manners by the time he went back to work. Every day for a week after that, he came into Antidote at the same time to see her again. On the 5th day, he asked her out to dinner, and they'd been together ever since. It had all seemed so romantic, so perfect, except for the fact that Kenneth worked late a lot and traveled out of town nearly every other week, which, in retrospect, probably should have clued her in. Penny was definitely cursed. Either that, or deeply stupid, to keep falling for one cheating man after another. Her throat tightened as she watched Kenneth lean over to whisper something in his date's ear. Whatever he said made the blonde blush and giggle. His hand curled protectively around her waist, and she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Penny blinked as her throat burned. She was about 5 seconds from crying, and she needed to get somewhere private before that happened. Calmly, so as not to arouse any suspicion, she set aside her knitting, excused herself, and hurried to the bathroom. There were 2 stalls in the ladies' room, and fortunately both were empty. Penny chose the larger one and slid the bolt home as tears welled in her eyes. Her vision blurred as she peered at the lidless toilet seat. Whatever. She could cry just as well standing up. Kenneth had lied to her. How long had it been going on? How many times had he lied to her before this? Had he ever gone out of town for work? Or had it all been an elaborate ruse? One that she'd fallen for, hook, line, and sinker. She felt like such a chump. For all she knew, he'd been seeing this woman for a long time. Maybe even before he'd asked Penny out. Oh God, what if he was cheating on this other woman with Penny? A moan escaped her lips at the thought. How could she have been so dumb, so trusting? You'd think she would have learned to be more cautious after the last time. The last 3 times, to recognize the signs. But apparently not. She heard the creak of the bathroom door opening and clapped her hand over her mouth to stifle her sobs. She was almost positive Kenneth hadn't seen her, and she didn't think any of her friends had noticed anything wrong. Hopefully it was just some stranger coming in to pee. "Hello?" said a male voice that definitely did not belong to Kenneth. It took her a moment to place it. Caleb? He was one of the baristas who worked there. And not just any barista, but the superhumanly hot barista she'd had a shallow crush on for months. "Yeah." What was he doing in here? She sniffled and scrubbed at her eyes. "This is the women's restroom." "I saw you get up when Kenneth came in with that woman." Wonderful. Now hottie barista knew what a pathetic chump she was. Perfect. Of all the people who could have witnessed her indignity, it had to be...